Welcome back to the Wildcat Wire, everybody, and we are reaching the end of 2018, which means we got to hand out our awards for our annual The Wire Awards. I'm Nate Thomas, and I've got Jake Janisek here. Jake, how you feeling about this?
I'm feeling pretty good. You know, it's been a really good year for sports, I would say. A lot went on, a lot happened, and we got some awards. We got some nominees to talk about. It's going to be a pretty good, action-packed podcast.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, we're going to hand out some awards here. The first edition of the Wire Awards. We're going to kind of run through some of our high school awards here, college, and then professional. We'll get into some mix there at the end. But let's start off with Nebraska High School Athlete of the Year. Our nominees are Nick Henrich of Burke football team, Baylor Shireman, quarterback of the Aurora football team, Sharif Mitchell of Burke basketball, and Nicole Arope of Creighton Prep basketball. Let's kind of talk about these nominees first. Obviously, Nick Henrich was the Gatorade High School Player of the Year for Nebraska, taking home like every award possible. First team All-State, like captain of the All-State team. Baylor Shireman, probably the best quarterback in the state this year, Jake.
Yeah, for sure. He definitely was one of the better quarterbacks, really that I've heard of. Just looking at his stats, he really impressed me this year, just how well he's been. And I'm surprised he only got he got All Class C, I think. I thought he could have get some higher honors, maybe All Nebraska, second team All Nebraska, but he definitely had a great year.
Yeah, I mean, even when I went to go see him play, I was amazed. His ability to throw on the run, and he's a left-handed quarterback too. So, I mean, his ability to play was just crazy to me. Next one, Sharif Mitchell. Well, obviously, we're going through all of 2018. Sharif Mitchell is not of right now. He was last season, but I mean, undoubtedly one of the best scorers in Class A. And I mean, we both got to see him play multiple times, and we were surprised.
Yeah, he was definitely a really good player for Burke basketball. Going to Creighton, he's committed to Creighton. He's definitely going to do some good things there.
Yeah, he's playing down at Sunrise Christian Academy, I believe it's what it's called, down in Kansas, before he makes his trip back to Omaha to join the Blue Jays. And then our last nominee, the Husker basketball commit, Nicole Arope. He's a special player. I mean, I don't know how else to really describe it. As a 6'6" forward, he's improving his shot a little bit. But, I mean, if he keeps growing, he could be really good.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be a really good player for Creighton Prep this year. Creighton Prep, who knows, they could maybe make a run at another state title.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk a little bit more about that Creighton Prep basketball team in general here once we get into our team section. But, I mean, he was a special player last year. We saw him play a couple of times on him. He threw down a windmill dunk against Millard West. He dunked it over Tristan Gomez against Millard West on an alley-oop in one of them. I mean, he dominated both those games, and he's dominating teams left and right, and he's only getting better. All right.
So kind of moving on from the athletes, we're going to talk about the high school game of the year here in Nebraska. So all these involve our Millard West Wildcats. So our first one is Millard West versus Millard South in basketball, Millard West versus Millard South in football, Millard West versus Grand Island, the double overtime game, and then Millard West versus Burke in the semifinals. So let's kind of talk about the first game here, Millard West versus Millard South basketball.
That game was way back in January, so a lot of people aren't going to remember it. But Millard South coming into this game was, one of the top 3 teams in the state. Everyone was praising them so highly. They were playing so well. Millard West is struggling so much. And it's the rivalry of Q Street. And that game was neck and neck all the way to the end. And Millard South just pulled ahead late in the fourth quarter to win it. But it was still one of the best basketball games I've seen in a while.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about the football game. Now, the Millard West, Millard South football game is definitely one of my more favorite games that I've commentated and just being involved with at Millard West.
That's got to be my favorite game of Millard West history, probably. I mean, you don't come back from 14 points down against your rival to win in overtime like Millard West did. That's special.
Yeah, it was really special. And then Millard West versus Grand Island, the double overtime game, which probably should have never gone to overtime with the pick six thrown by Tristan. But overall, that was a pretty good game too. Millard West was able to prevail.
I mean, Grand Island was a great team. That's why they made it back to the state. They made it to the state championship in November, and I kind of said it then, like, this could be a team that Millard West could see later in the season. Obviously, we didn't get to see it happen again, but I mean, that Grand Island team made it to the state championship, and Millard West was able to kind of play double overtime. Like you said, that game probably should have never went to overtime. Think about that game differently if Cole Evans played it.
Yeah.
He played not even one quarter of football. So, otherwise, I mean, double overtime, that doesn't come by very often, and it was great. It was really heavily contested.
Yeah, and then the Millard West versus Burke game in the semifinals. Obviously, it was a great game, kind of frustrating for us, but Burke was able to prevail, was able to capitalize off some Millard West mistakes there at the end. So overall, that was a pretty good game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest play of that game was the 97 kick return for a touchdown, the longest return for a touchdown in Class A playoff history. So, I mean, and then a James Burke touchdown with 14 seconds left. So, obviously, it was a great game that we got to see.
Mm-hmm. And then let's kind of switch over. Oh, well, we got to say who do we...
Well, yeah, we didn't even name our best athlete. So, consensusly, we've kind of talked about all these winners already. And so, our first winner for High School Athlete of the Year is going to be Nick Henrich, middle linebacker for Omaha Burke. I mean, the Husker football commit, you can't say much differently about it. Mm-hmm. And then this game of the year, heavily debated. We're going to have to go with Millard West versus Millard South in the football game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, two really good picks. I mean, congratulations as the first edition of the Wire Award winners. But we're not done with our high school section yet. High school team of the year. We have Creighton Prep basketball team, the Burke football, Aurora football, and Scott football. So we haven't got a lot of basketball in yet this year. I think a big case for a nominee in this could also be the York football team. York basketball team. But they didn't quite make the cut. Burke football. Let's start off with them. You don't have two Husker football commits and a possible third for they were good. And that was a team that you might never ever again see in high school with that much talent.
Yeah, Burke was one of the better teams I saw this year. They pretty much dominated the competition until the last two games of the playoffs. And I would say they kind of just dominated the end of those games. They're definitely one of the more dominant teams in football for Nebraska. And yeah, you're right. We'll never really see a team like that again.
Creighton Prep basketball is going to be our next one. I saw this team play a couple of times. We watched the state championship a little bit. That was a pretty good team. And, they had great shooters. They had a Cola Rope. Kind of talk about that, Jake.
Yeah, Creighton Prep, they're a pretty good team. You obviously got to look at a Cole Rope. He was up for our Athlete of the Year. He's just a really good player. He really elevates that team to another level. And just that team as a whole was really good. And I have a feeling that they might win a state title this year.
Yeah, they returned a couple of their good players from a season ago. They also lost a lot of great shooters and stuff on that team. Let's keep moving on. Aurora football, Baylor Shireman. Obviously you never really got to see them play, Jake, but when I saw them, man, that offense might be... They operate like an NFL-style offense, no huddle. They run the ball decently, but I mean, Baylor Shireman, that receiving core is really good, and that defense is pretty decent as well.
Mm-hmm. So the team that we picked for...
Oh, we got to go through Scott football. That team, I mean, they had Ryan McCormick, Tyson Gordon, Jared Epperson. I don't know if you watched that game, but that Class B state championship with Scottsbluff. Scottsbluff was a decent team. Shout out to them. But, I mean, Scott had so much talent. That football team is really good.
Mm-hmm. So, the team that we picked for Team of the Year, which was not really any argument, we kind of agreed on it, would probably be Burke football. They were just too good of a team this year. Showed a lot and won a state title.
Yeah, I mean, they won a state championship for a reason, like we said. They got lots of good players. Outside of their three kind of great players, you know, they had a good supporting cast around them, and they're just overall a really good team. All right, so that's going to wrap it up here for the high school section. We're going to move on to college here, and we're going to start off with our college athletes of the year. Jalen Brunson, Tua Tagovailoa, Kyler Murray, and Trey Young.
Yeah, pretty good bunch of players right there. Jalen Brunson, a really good player, was able to lead Villanova to the national championship. Tua, I guess you can say he led Alabama to a national championship back with Georgia, and now had a really good season this year. Personally, I thought he probably should have won the Heisman.
If he wouldn't have gotten injured against Georgia in the SEC championship, he probably would have won the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, just kind of rough that he had to get injured. And then, now the Heisman Trophy winner, Kyler Murray, who is a really good player. I thought he did a really good job this year.
He's special, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's like a Bo Jackson type guy where he could play professional football and baseball.
Yeah, and then we got Trey Young. Kind of had to throw Trey Young in here. Definitely one of the more exciting players of college basketball this past year, and he's not doing too bad with the Hawks.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of the best college three-point shooters we have seen in a pretty long time. I mean, you can't argue with that. And he single-handedly carried a not very good Oklahoma team into the tournament and almost won their first-round game against Rhode Island.
But the athlete we chose for college was Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson, you know, he had a really good year with Villanova, led him to a national title. Kind of just talk about Jalen Brunson a bit, Nate.
I mean, he's a really good player. He can shoot the ball well. He has a decent mid-range game, and he drives the ball to the basket and finishes really nicely. He's a great leader of that basketball team. I mean, he was probably the reason why they got to the national championship and ended up winning it with the help of Mikal Bridges and some of the other players on that team. But, I mean, he was the star of the show. He was the college basketball player of the year for a reason.
Yeah, and you could really see kind of how much the impact, especially with how kind of Villanova is doing right now, kind of, I would say, kind of a struggling start to the year.
Yeah.
And, okay, kind of switching over to game of the year. Now we have Alabama versus Georgia, not the SEC title game, even though that was a great game. We're talking about the national championship.
Way back in January.
Way back. Really great game. One of the most exciting games in football that I've seen, with Tua throwing a dart to the end zone in overtime to win it. Then we have Kansas versus Duke in the Elite Eight in Omaha. Really good game right there. I went to overtime.
That was, I was at that game, and unreal energy inside the arena. And it was a really great game. It had some controversy in it, but I mean, rimmed out shot from Grayson Allen that probably could have won it from Duke at the buzzer, but that overtime was special. And Malik Newman, talk about him, he had like 30 points in that game.
Yeah, you were just witnessing greatness in that game.
That game was really good.
Okay, now we got kind of one that is very close to our hearts. Michigan State versus Nebraska, one of the best defensive games Nebraska had this season, one of the best defensive games they've had in a while.
I mean, you even have to credit Michigan State. You hold a pretty good Nebraska offense to only 9 points in that game. Like, Nebraska's in the top 20 in total offense the whole season. You're holding Nebraska to 9 points, and Nebraska holding Michigan State to 6. I mean, the snow coming down, the comeback by Nebraska, it was a great game to us. Obviously, it wasn't to a lot of people across the country because they don't have the same kind of connection that we do to that.
And the classic game that took forever this year, everyone was tuned in this one, LSU versus Texas A&M. One of the most amazing probably game finishes I watched. 7 overtimes. Staying up late. Had to get your energy drinks in there to stay up for that one.
I mean, I remember I was sitting eating some Thanksgiving leftovers, and I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm about to go get ready for bed. I'll just watch maybe the little bit of end of this game, an overtime or two, and then I'll go to bed. And then everyone across the country glued their eyes onto the TV to watch a 7 overtime thriller. I mean, how much better was it? You had the whole country connecting. You went onto Twitter and you would see everybody talking about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was controversial. Got some controversial calls. Ed Oregon literally got a bath because they thought they won at the end of the game. And, just so much happened in that game that would just really be remembered. But the game that we ultimately chose as game of the year was the Alabama versus Georgia National Championship.
I mean, obviously a lot of the country doesn't like Alabama. We'll agree on that. They're not a fan favorite, but you got to credit that Alabama team coming back from the way that they were. Everyone had them down and out at halftime, and they were like, you have to bench Jalen Hurts, the quarterback that took you to a national championship a year ago, and all this and that, and then Tua Tagovailoa coming in, throwing the game-winning touchdown, as he talked about. I mean, that was a special game.
Yeah, that was definitely a special game. And kind of looking at the teams, we have Alabama football from last year. They were a really good team, obviously, with a lot of drama. Villanova basketball from last year, with just them winning the national championship. Alabama football this year. And then we had to put in Loyola Chicago, the great Final Four run that they had. One of the better runs you see, Sister Mary Jean. There's just so much cool with that story.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama football from a year ago was a solid team. They were the number 1 team all season again. Well, actually, no, they weren't. They were the 4th team into the playoff, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were still, one of the top teams all season, and they obviously lost. Didn't make it to the SEC championship, but they made it in the playoff. Ended up winning the national championship. They were still a really good team. Villanova basketball, we talked about them with Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Dante DiVincenzo, one of the best national championship performances you'll see. Tua Tagovailoa this year on that Alabama team. And then Loyola Chicago basketball. How can you don't have a better Cinderella story for that, do you? But, I mean, this one I think is kind of obvious. We're going to have to go with Alabama football for this year. I mean, it's a special team. And if they're the number 1 team for a reason, they're 13-0 for a reason. And we'll be seeing them in the playoff here, 9 days, 10 days, or whatever. So, I don't know. Your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, they're definitely a really good special team. A lot happened, even though, they almost lost to Georgia, but kind of had the storybook kind of from last year where Jalen Hurts came in against Georgia and was able to win the game for them. Kind of a cool story right there. And, yeah, I think ultimately they're probably one of the best college teams for this year. But we're gonna run quickly now through professional sports, kind of run out of time a bit here. So we got athlete for professional. We got Nick Foles, the Super Bowl MVP. LeBron James, just because he's LeBron James. James Harden, the MVP, and one that I really like here, Patrick Mahomes, best young quarterback prospect to ever play in NFL.
I think Nick Foles was a great player, kind of coming back, leading that Eagles team in the playoffs to the Super Bowl MVP. LeBron James, he is LeBron James. He is the greatest player of all time. And he had a special playoffs in season a year ago. I don't know how he didn't win the MVP. James Harden, he had a really great season too. He was the MVP of the league ultimately. And Patrick Mahomes, what can you not say about that guy?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at those primetime games. The one on Monday Night Football, I believe, against the Broncos. Coming back in the fourth quarter, the left-handed flip on the run. He's the leading MVP runner for this year with 2 games left to play. But my pick for this has got to be the GOAT.
Yeah. It's got to be LeBron James. LeBron James, obviously, he's definitely been the athlete of the year. He's just crazy athletic and just great. Kind of switch over to game of the year right now. We got Dolphins versus Patriots from this year. One of the best finishes you'll see in an NFL game in a long time.
In history. History, it's got to be one of those.
And the only thing good about it was against the Patriots.
Yeah, that's what made it so great. Moving on to our next nominee, Rams versus Chiefs, one of the best games you'll ever see in your lifetime.
Yes, that was definitely one of the most stressful games for me. Definitely a lot of fun to watch. 54-51, the highest scoring Monday night game in NFL history. And, it was just an overall great game. You're just looking at young quarterbacks, Jared Goff and Patrick Mahomes, just going back and forth, exchanging punches. It was just such a great game to watch.
Next one, Dodgers versus the Red Sox, Game 3 of the World Series, 18-inning thriller. I believe it ended in a walk-off home run for Max Muncy. But I didn't see that game. I know, the whole country was talking about it that night at 12:30, 1 in the morning, and everyone was, I don't know, it was probably one of the highest talked about things that I had seen in quite a long time. Next one here, and our last one, the Eagles versus the Patriots in the Super Bowl. That game was only great because the Patriots lost, right?
Yeah, sorry to all the Patriots fans listening. We're kind of picking the games that were against you guys.
But, there can't be really much of a debate. The Wildcat Wire Award is going to go to the Rams versus the Chiefs. That game I didn't get to watch it, but I was really upset that I didn't get to see it when I saw that it was 54-51. The whole country was talking about it like it was.
Now, that's done with professional. Now we're looking at it as a whole.
Well, no, we got our professional team left to go.
Oh.
Our 5 nominees, we're going with the top 5 sports in America here. The Philadelphia Eagles, the Golden State Warriors, the Boston Red Sox, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and one that I really like a lot, the Atlanta United soccer team of MLS. Philadelphia Eagles, obviously, your Super Bowl champions. First Super Bowl in history. And how many years for that franchise? The Golden State Warriors basketball. It's a dynasty going for them right now. The Boston Red Sox, 108 wins. It's been a long time since we've seen a team win that many games.
Yeah.
And be as dominant as they were. And then 2 really good feel-good stories here. The Las Vegas Golden Knights, their second year as a franchise, they make it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. I believe that was 6 games in that series.
Yeah.
Against the Washington Capitals. But then Atlanta United, Joseph Martinez having the MLS season record. Atlanta's second year as a franchise, they're winning the MLS Cup against, a pretty good team. But we have to go with the Boston Red Sox here. We're not huge baseball fans, but that's going to be the Wildcat Wire winner for this. They had 108 wins this year. That's unheard of.
Yeah, they were definitely one of the better teams, dominating the World Series, and getting it against the Dodgers definitely was probably the team of the year. Now, kind of wrapping up the Wire Awards here, we're talking about moment of the year. So our first moment that we picked was Eagles win the Super Bowl. Definitely a really cool game.
Yep.
Beating the Patriots. Nick Foles coming in, leading them through the playoffs, becoming Super Bowl MVP. Just a really cool moment. Then we got Loyola Chicago. We talked about them earlier. Really cool moment going to the Final Four. One of the best runs you'll see. And it's just really cool, to the team it happened to. And then LeBron James in Game 7 against the Boston Celtics.
I think the whole playoffs in here are for LeBron James.
Yeah. All the playoffs are really good. We got the Grand Island State Championship, and then the last one, just a really feel-good story. UAB football didn't have a football team 2 years ago. They cut football, was able to come back, finish 10-2 this year, win the Conference USA title. Just a really good story. But
yeah, I mean, you talk about that UAB football team. I mean, that was pretty sad to see the way that they had to cut it. You know, they kind of just had to tell all the players. You know, everyone was upset. The whole country kind of knew about it. The Grand Island Islanders, Class A, making it all the way to the Class A state championship. That's a really good team. Someone out west. First time we've seen that in a while. LeBron James in the playoffs, dominant. Eagles in the Super Bowl. I mean, only good because they beat the Patriots. And then Loyola Chicago. I mean, you're never going to see a better run.
yeah, but we ultimately picked for our moment of the year was that the Eagles won the Super Bowl. Really good game. We've already talked about Nick Foles, Super MVP, beating the Patriots.
We talked about that team as well. That was such a really good team put together all around. And I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about that. You might never see a team that great again.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. So that's going to wrap it up for the first annual year of the Wire Awards. I'm Jake Janasek.
And I'm Nate Thomas. We'll catch you guys next time.